Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. And talking of Americans, I've got a special guest coming in this evening. I've got the Governor of Mississippi, Phil Bryant, who'll be coming in within the next half an hour, and you'll find out what a state governor in the USA does and how he, as a Trump supporter, indeed the man that put me on the stage with Trump in Mississippi, thinks Trump is doing 100 days in to being the US president. But today, on the campaign trail, well, the Labour Party are talking about the health service. They're talking about an extra £37 billion that they're going to pump in. But the Prime Minister is engaged directly in the battle for working-class voters. Yes, that's right. A Conservative Prime Minister is battling for working-class voters. And just think about this. By tradition, the working classes voted Labour in their droves. Mrs Thatcher in the 80s made some inroads. The surge in UKIP from 2012 onwards was basically predominantly through working class voters, and now the Tory party are making a direct pitch. They're saying they will protect and extend workers' rights. They're making a very big issue of that. And I just wonder, who do you think now truly represents working class voters? Do the old arguments of left and right mean anything anymore? So to get involved, perhaps you think, no, of course, it's still the Labour Party that truly represents the working classes. You can call 0345 60 60 973. Maybe you think, no, the game has changed. Skilled workers and semi-skilled workers, production line workers, it's the Tories that now speak their language. Well, if so, text me on 84850. Or maybe you think it's UKIP or somebody else that represents working class voters, in which case, using the hashtag Farage and LBC, tweet at LBC. And of course, you can watch the show live. Just go to LBC's Facebook page now. Grace in Ealing. Grace, tell me, who now represents working class voters?
Labour.
Yep.
I think that it's difficult for us to discern from what politicians are saying at the moment what they're actually most likely to do. But I think that the fact that Labour came out with a policy saying that they wanted to increase the minimum wage to £10 weeks ago, and that they want to raise money for public services by taxing the very, very wealthiest, demonstrates that they are most genuine in their wanting to share out what we have more equally. And I don't trust that the Tories are actually serious about sticking up for working class voters. I think that a lot of what the Tories say is just talk.
Grace, does increasing taxes, or perhaps going back to super taxes on the wealthy, does that directly help working class people?
If the money's spent sensibly in the public sector, then it should do. Of course, it's far more complex than I can easily explain all that I know about. But I think that if money comes in from the very wealthiest and is shared out amongst the people that most need it, and spent on things like the NHS and providing meals for school children, I think that is much more in line with what's fair and with what working class voters should be in support of than with Tory policies.
Grace, I completely understand that for working class voters, the NHS, schooling, all these things are very, very important. But what I suspect is even more important to them is their job, their income. And OK, yes, Labour want to put the minimum wage up, but actually the Tory party in government have made some big promises on the minimum wage. Isn't the real issue, isn't the real disaffection of working class voters with the Labour Party, and the reason a lot of them came to UKIP and maybe now are going to the Tories, isn't it down to immigration? Wasn't it open door immigration that drove people's wages down, so that from 2008 until now, in real terms, skilled and semi-skilled workers saw their income fall by 10% in real terms?
I read today that Jeremy Corbyn has said that he will stop free movement when we leave the EU.
Really?
I think that the reality is that Jeremy Corbyn's not made strongly anti-immigration statements that some working class people might like to hear, because ultimately Jeremy Corbyn is deeply concerned about human beings, and he doesn't want to just penalise people that are desperate for a better life. And I'm not saying that we should just let in everyone, but I think that Jeremy Corbyn wants to find solutions that will be able to provide the best lifestyle and support for as many human beings as possible.
Well, that's fine, Grace, that's fine, but my contention is that working-class voters in this country care about immigration more than any other issue, because that is what's affected their jobs, their income, their communities. But, Grace, I thank you for your call, and I appeal to anybody that disagrees with that view. Tell me I'm wrong. Call me on 0345 6060 973. Jonathan in Norway, hello there.
God bless you. Hello. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, I do think Labour do speak for the working classes. Interesting thing, though, is that didn't Blair's government almost get rid of the working classes and turn lots of them into middle classes or lower middle classes? So how do we actually define the working classes now? Well, there is another thing which is interesting. I think people who used to vote Conservative are now finding their own living standards dropping. They might be doing okay as pensioners, but ever since the financial crash of 2008, their investments are absolutely useless. So I think there's quite a few people who used to be Conservatives are now thinking, hang on a minute, I'm not that far off from being poor.
Well, because, no, I get that, Jonathan. I mean, how do we define it? Well, C2s are skilled workers, Ds and Es are the semi-skilled, the unskilled and the unemployed. But I agree with you. I think the traditional definition of working class has changed completely, hasn't it?
Yeah. Also, this is a bit off topic. Can I give you a suggestion?
Yeah, go on.
Listen, when we lose all our MEPs, there's going to be loads of British people in Europe. Who's going to speak for them? Because we're not going to have any MEPs. And I know you've got a few fans in Denmark. Now, your Danish is probably pants, all right?
Right,
your Danish is probably shocking. So is there any chance that you could get a job as an MEP for one of the Eurosceptic parties? Because I tell you what, it would be dead funny. And not only that, I can imagine that you would also make some very useful contributions to the debate.
Well, Jonathan, my Danish is really poor. I would need to start night school now. I've even been criticised because my French isn't very good. Jonathan, who will speak?
You can see where I'm coming from.
Well, I can, but actually, once we've left, haven't we?
Well, yeah, this interesting thing, as far as there's supposedly 560,000 Brits between the ages of 30 and 64 who were working in the EU. Now, I'm just wondering what they're going to do if they come back. There's another 180,000 who are actually effectively pensioners. I'm thinking,
Jonathan,
if they come back, what's the
Jonathan,
NHS going to be like? Yeah.
None of this is going to happen. You know, our pensioners who are living in Brittany or living in the Costa del Sol, you know, if they were to leave those countries, I hate to think what would happen to the economy of southern Spain. None of it, Jonathan, is going to happen. They're all just ridiculous scare stories.
But are they more of a burden on the Spanish health? I mean, I don't know.
No, Jonathan, what happens is, if they're treated by the Spanish authorities then send a bill to the UK government who pay that bill. A pity, isn't it, that so many of the EU workers that are in Britain, when it comes to their bills being paid, we don't seem to get the money.
Or there's another one, which is, this is something you made also as well. You'll probably know about this, is the number of Brits who are working, paying national insurance outside of the UK, in the EU, but having to come back to the UK because they are resident for tax purposes in the country, in the EU, where they're working and paying tax, but they don't live there for the purposes of receiving anything in return for the contributions. And you'll know.
I know. And Jonathan, you're very naughty, because you've taken me completely off topic, but I love you. It's a great phone call. I get on text. I must say that I was surprised with Mrs May, and I believe that the Tories represent us, the working classes, says Chris Edmond from Northern Ireland. On Twitter, how can people think of Labour as the Workers' Party? Their unrestricted, open immigration policy has kept wages down for 10 years, says Ant. Well, Ant, that is my view. That is what I think. Yes, of course, working class people care about public services, but they care about jobs and income. And in the case of skilled and semi-skilled workers, they've been undercut over the last few years. That, folks, is what I think. If you disagree, call me and tell me. Rose in Hull, who are the party of the working classes?
Well, I think I have my problems with both, but I would have to say, for me personally, it's Labour. But I would certainly not vote for them, I have to say. I was a young person who voted out of the EU.
Yep.
Sorry to shock your listeners.
No. I mean, you know, a third of young people did. So, you know, it's not a tiny minority, is it?
No, of course not. My main problem with, as your previous caller said, it's that with Jeremy Corbyn, being honest, the open immigration thing. And
yes.
The problem is, to talk about, what you're going to talk about Labour with, America with Donald Trump in the 100 days.
Yep.
In this country, the defense was immigrants do the jobs people don't. And I'm sorry, but that is a total lie. That is an absolute lie.
Is it? Go on, tell me why.
Well, I just think as a young person, I'm at university, and I've always had to do work in different types of jobs. I've worked in bars, I've done cleaning, I've done this, that, and the other. And I'm sorry to say that working class people will not do those jobs, in my mind, is an absolute lie. It's a total lie, and it totally alienates the working class, in my mind.
Is it not possible that actually what's been happening here is that big employers have been deliberately favouring overseas workers?
Yeah, and that's totally wrong in my mind. It's totally wrong, and this is what worries me about the working class, is that they have been exploited, but people have just said, oh, we'll hire immigrants because they'll do the job.
But despite all of that, you still think the Labour Party truly represents the working classes, yeah?
Between the two, between Tories and Labour...
No, fair enough. Thank you very much indeed for your call. On Facebook, Scott says, Corbyn is promising all this money. Is he getting a payday loan for the country? Well, I tell you what, Scott, we're still borrowing 50 billion sterling every year. So whenever you hear it in this election, how are we going to pay for it? We're already running at a huge, huge deficit. Jack says, I don't love the Conservatives. Not many can say they are happy with the state of British politics right now. And Tom says, Labour have long since forgotten the working classes. I want to hear all your views on this subject, and I'm here for you to challenge me right now. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:15.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Doctors will this week discuss the idea that NHS patients would pay for routine appointments. Leading family doctors from across the land will look at the possibility of charging patients for consultations, the only way to end the crisis in general practice.
Considering that the doctors get paid as much as they do, I don't think we should pay a penny more than we already do through our taxes.
Daniel in Hayes.
It's quite ridiculous to suggest that the solution is cutting doctors' pay.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
With Hampton by Hilton, now open in Aberdeen.
937 AD. England is a nation divided. Small kings and Viking lords are vying for land and power. At the eye of the storm stands Dunstan of Glastonbury Abbey, the man who will control the destiny of 7 kings of England and the fate of an entire nation. This is the original game for the English throne. Dunstan, the historical fiction blockbuster by Con Iggulden. On sale now in hardback, audiobook and ebook.
Oh, the garden's an absolute mess. It's my turn to have the cross-stitch crew round for tea and Battenberg. I'll have to get a landscape gardener in and a wildlife expert. It's a jungle out there. We could be eaten alive by those deadly flutterbugs. Oh, relax, relax. It's Trust a Trader. Marvellous local tradespeople who've been tried, tested and reviewed. All specialists in their areas, from landscape gardening to pest control. Oh, visit trustatrader.com.
Trustatrader.com. Zingflowers.com. Fresh, hand-tied bouquets with easy online ordering.
Zing flowers are amazing every time.
What's the smart way to give yourself a break from the city? This summer, discover the untamed beauty of Ireland's wild Atlantic Way with Aer Lingus. With 1,500 miles of dramatic coastlines, rugged headlands, secluded beaches and charming villages, it's sure to blow the cobwebs away. Fly from London to the west coast of Ireland from just $32.99 each way as part of a return trip. Smart discovers the wild Atlantic Way. Smart flies Aer Lingus, Ireland's only 4-star airline. Book now at airlingus.com. Offer subject to conditions and availability.
The Global Academy in Hayes is a state school for 14 to 19-year-olds interested in a media career. Our next open day is on the 23rd of May. Register now at globalacademy.com.
We've been thinking about Tom.
The cat.
And how, whilst he's remembered to buy cat litter, he's forgotten his bank card. But instead of worrying about how he's going to pay for it, he's simply wondering if a dog might have been a better choice of pet. That's because at NatWest, we've already thought about the left bank card at home scenario. It's why we created Get Cash, so you can withdraw money from our cash machines with just our mobile app. NatWest. We are what we do.
Take out up to £130 a day as long as it's within your withdrawal limit. App available to customers with online banking and a UK number.
Divorce. It threatens the things you've worked hard for in more ways than you can imagine. Your home, savings, pension, and most of all, your relationship with your children. Don't let divorce cost you any more than it has to. Cordell & Cordell is dedicated to helping men in matters relating to divorce. Call now on 0330 60 60 161 or visit cordellcordell.co.uk. Office in central London. A partner men can count on.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Well, I have a guest with me today. I have got the Governor of Mississippi, Mr. Phil Bryant. Now, I met Phil on the Trump Trail last year, and it was in Jackson, Mississippi, where Phil got me on the stage with Donald J. Trump. It was a pretty sort of 18,000 people in a football stadium, Phil.
Yeah.
And
they loved you.
It was, well, I know. I mean, they understood.
They absolutely loved you. It was so much fun, Nigel, and thank you for having me. This is exciting to know you guys are building this talk radio where people can listen to unfeathered and the story directly from you. But yeah, that was a great night. Candidate Trump was looking forward to seeing you, and Rudy Giuliani thought he was going to get to speak, and Nigel Farage spoke in his place.
Yes, the former mayor of New York got bounced for me, which was pretty remarkable.
Now, you're very popular in Mississippi.
Well, I had a great time. Yeah. Now, we kind of understand in this country the president, and we sort of get the House of Reps and the Senate and all of that. Right. But can you just tell people, educate people, what is the governor of a state in the USA?
Well, it's a great job because you get to be an executive. Governors can make decisions. We have cabinets just like the president would. If you would think of a president of Mississippi, that would be much what I do every day. And our Constitution earlier, it was founded, said the real power rests within the states, and that power not directly afforded to the states would be left for the federal government. So it's inverted a little bit as time has gone on. But federalism would say that governors have the executive authority to run their state basically as independent states within this confederation of the United States of America. So it's an executive branch.
So you've got real power?
We think so. Sometimes the legislature doesn't like to say that, the Senate and the House, but certainly you can issue executive orders, such as the president. You're commander-in-chief of the National Guard, the military within your state. You're head of the law enforcement community, so the Department of Public Safety, the Department of Health, of Human Services. So you've got not only that, concerns of law enforcement and protection and military, but also the health and welfare of those people who really need support, not just those that would like it, but those that are in need.
Fascinating. Well, don't forget, you can watch Governor Phil Bryant live on LBC's Facebook page right now, and we're learning a bit, or I hope we're all learning a bit, about how America operates and the fact that each state has an elected governor who's got real executive power, and it matters a lot who gets elected.
And about 33 of us are Republicans. So real large majority Republicans, most like in Mississippi, majority Republicans in the legislature, the House of Representatives, and supermajority in the Senate. So it is quickly becoming the conservative leadership that is assisting and helping President Donald Trump carry out his agenda is being done so at the grassroots level by governors who are helping initiate that.
So 33 of the 50 states are now Republican governors, which is a big change, isn't it?
It is.
It's a big change.
In about a decade, you saw those numbers. There were probably 33 or 34 Democrats a decade or so ago, and now Republicans. And as we're able, for example, in Mississippi, to pass a bill that will eliminate sanctuary cities within the state of Mississippi. So you would be in violation of state law if you were a mayor and designated a sanctuary city because they're political subdivisions of the state. And those are the type of things that we believe help.
Sanctuary cities, folks, are a very controversial issue in the USA, where basically illegal immigrants can effectively go and hide and be left pretty much as they are.
You have an elected official and a mayor and sometimes a city council or board of supervisors that say we're going to assist we're going to aid and abet illegal immigrants, maybe that have not only crossed our borders and came here illegally, but violated other state and local laws, and they're being kept and protected.
Yeah, that's a big row. Now look, it's over 100 days.
Yeah.
Since the Trump inauguration, and I think from this side of the water, people are a bit confused. I mean, it kind of looks like Trump is having a pretty tough time getting his agenda through.
Yeah. Well, it's just the world of bizarro, as we call it. If you read the liberal media, if you only watch MSNBC, or if you only read the New York Times, you thought he's a total object failure. He's had a remarkable 100 days. And we all talked about Supreme Court justices, and to have not only an appointment but confirmed a Supreme Court justice that is in the philosophy of Anton Scalia. This was critical. But the executive orders has been used. If you look at illegal crossing of the border along our southern border, down some 65%. Just the fact that he's allowing Immigration Customs Services to do their job and enforce the law has dramatically decreased the illegal crossing of our southern borders, which has had a dramatic effect, I can tell you, on the cost of health care, of education, of law enforcement that has to be spent by a governor for illegal immigration. So you look at the economy, less than 4% unemployment, or right around 4% unemployment, the lowest it's been in about a decade. Mississippi, it's the lowest unemployment has been since 1976. This president is moving each and every day. Look at what happened in Syria. So he sends a strong message to the rest of the world.
But a lot of Trump voters were very unhappy about that because he did say during the campaign he would generally be non-interventionist. So I know some Trump supporters and commentators were a bit nervous about that.
You know, it's always hard to keep everyone happy. If you're keeping everyone happy, you're doing something dramatically wrong.
Yeah, no, I get that.
So I think, and as you become a president, I think he evolves to the point of seeing what happened when those chemical agents were introduced and killing children and women, and as most men would, he wanted to react, and as a leader in the free world, he wanted to send a message. And by the way, those two destroyers that fired the Tomahawk missiles, both of them were manufactured in Mississippi at Pascagoula, at Ingalls, and so we're very
So you're
proud
happy
of
about that at least.
But this is a very dangerous world, and I think strength is respected and expected, particularly by those in the Middle East that would want to do harm not only to the United States but to Great Britain.
Now, you know Donald Trump very well. You're a close friend and advocate, and here we are in the UK. We're in the middle of a general election, and it looks like Mrs May is going to, having now taken the Brexit agenda, having been opposed to it, but she's taken it. In fact,
funny how that works.
Many of the things I've been saying for years, and she's saying it, and she's going to win big.
Good for her.
What does she need to do?
I think she started out right. She was the first world leader to come to Washington, D.C. and meet with the president. And that didn't go unnoticed, not only by the president, but by the supporters and the people of the United States. So we see, and I'm here in London today to help build that relationship. I was at the State Department today. I met with a couple of large companies that have investments in Mississippi. We see a time, I think, of coming together of the United States and Great Britain that we haven't seen perhaps since Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher, two great world leaders. I think if PMA picks up 150 seats, what a
majority,
mandate.
Well, I think she probably will, looking at the numbers.
See, in the United States, those seem like huge numbers as a possibility.
Oh, it is.
Someone that we barely knew a year ago, had never heard her name, and now she's quickly on the world stage. But if we can develop that relationship that we have known in the past with these two great countries of ours, I think you're going to see, hopefully, Great Britain be a gateway to the EU and trade and support. NATO, again, establishing safety and security here with the help and support of the United States. I think you're going to see a great generation of Americans and Brits coming together for the mutual benefit of the country.
Now, President Obama said that the United Kingdom would be at the back of the queue.
He did.
We didn't like that very much. In fact, actually, to be fair, he helped the Brexit campaign. But there was a little story the other week that appeared in the Times of London saying that maybe Trump would consider Germany and the EU as being his priority for trade over the United Kingdom.
I don't think that's going to happen.
You don't?
I don't want to speak for the president, but I can tell you his affection for and support of Great Britain is very strong. We've heard him talk about it again. He understands the importance of Europe and EU, but this is, I think, a personal affection and belief that a stronger Great Britain means a freer, more prosperous world.
So if Mrs. May gets this right, we can have a free trade deal with the United States of America in a couple of years' time. I would say,
again, it would surprise me if the president is not eager to put that deal together. He talks about free trade deals all the time, and I would imagine this would be at the front of the queue.
Good, right, that's the sort of language I want to hear. Now, the big debate in British politics today is who represents the working classes. And traditionally, our Labour Party was for the working classes, and the Tory Party was more seen to be the middle classes and the business owners. And it's interesting because I see some parallels here, because in a way, didn't Trump effectively go for working class factory workers, and yet he's a billionaire many times over.
But he's a blue-collar billionaire. When I talk to the president, when we interact, he is so down to earth, and here's the governor of the state of Mississippi, and we have such a great relationship. I visited with him at the National Rifle Association meeting in Atlanta just a couple of weeks ago, and he is the most blue-collar billionaire you'd ever want to meet.
I got to tell you, that is quite some phrase. A blue-collar billionaire.
Yeah.
That really
and
is
that
something.
sensitivity towards a working man comes through, and he can interact with guys that are out working each and every day. They feel that. They know the concern. And here's Barack Obama in this elevated limousine liberal position talking down to them as their jobs were evaporating, particularly in the coal country, for example, in the Rust Belt. And in comes this guy that says, hey, let's get out there and kick some doors open and bring our jobs back.
Now, later on, in October, there'll be a state visit from President Trump to the United Kingdom. Yeah. Do you think he's looking forward to that?
Oh, absolutely he is. I think he will make certain that people around the world understand that he's not coming here as a sense of duty, but a sense of honor and a sense of desire to be a part of Great Britain and the relationship between Great Britain and the United States. And I think you'll see him maybe channel a little Churchill while he's here.
And we're told he's a fan of the Queen.
I would think that would be correct.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, we're fans of the Queen. In fact, I think the whole world are fans. And you might have heard that her husband, who's nearly 96, announced last week he's about to retire. So I think between them, they've done us great service.
Yeah.
Governor Bryant, thank you very much for coming in, talking about America. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:30 and time for the news with Philip Chrysikos.
The NHS says the situation is improving following last week's cyber attack that hit parts of the health service. Just 2 hospitals are now having to divert patients away from accident and emergency. Theresa May has been confronted by a voter angry at cuts to disability benefits. The Prime Minister was campaigning in Oxfordshire, saying the Conservatives will focus on helping those most in need. As the Labour Party promises to provide an extra £37 billion for the NHS, the Lib Dems say they'll get rid of the 1% cap on public sector pay rises, while UKIP is challenging the Conservatives to rule out any rise in national insurance contributions. LBC weather: cloudy this evening and overnight with showers over the north and west, a low of 13 degrees. Tomorrow, patchy rain to start, turning drier and brighter from the northwest but staying cloudy and humid in the southeast, a high of 21 degrees.
LBC Travel, good evening. I'm Andy Lake. Well, after an issue with the signals at Aldgate earlier on, there are severe delays on the Circle and Hammersmith and City lines and on the Metropolitan line between Wembley Park and Aldgate. Also minor delays on the rest of the Metropolitan line and on the Heathrow and Uxbridge branches of the Piccadilly line. Onto the roads now in North London. Queues on the M25 clockwise from 24 for Potters Bar to 25 for the A10 in Enfield after an issue saw it briefly blocked. Into central London, Fulham Road is closed either side of Stamford Bridge ahead of tonight's Chelsea-Watford match kicking off in around half an hour. Into the West Midlands, the A38M Aston Expressway is closed for an ongoing investigation between Dartmouth Circus and the M6 at Spaghetti Junction. This is causing awful delays all around the major routes in Birmingham tonight. And in Manchester, the M60 is down to just 2 lanes from 4 clockwise at Junction 16 for Pendlebury because a car's caught fire, causing queues back to Junction 13 for Worsley. For more real-time traffic updates, go to lbc.co.uk.
This is LBC.
So what does everybody love about Basics from Oasis Dental Care?
I love getting affordable private dental care at my local Oasis practice.
I love having the treatment I need at a fixed price.
I love booking an appointment at a time that suits me.
With Basics, we're sharing the love at Oasis practices all over the UK. Book a Basics checkup now for just £30 at oasisdentalcare.co.uk. What's not to love? Participating practices only. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
What if you took a holiday where your inhibitions stayed at home and everything from menus to memories was supersized? What if the city felt like every movie you'd ever seen and discovering hidden bars and delis helped you rediscover each other? A world of what if is waiting. US city breaks with British Airways, now from just £499 per person for 3 nights, including return flights and hotel. Book now at BA.com. Limited availability, date exclusions, conditions and booking fees may apply. At all protected.
Hi, I'm Ryan Reynolds, and I'm going to demonstrate just how far around the home BT Infinity can reach in the next 20 seconds. Here goes. I can get Wi-Fi here in the kitchen. Back here in the bathroom. Oh, look at that. Out here in the garden. Even way up in the attic. You know what? Let's just take my word for it.
BT Infinity, the UK's most powerful Wi-Fi versus major broadband providers.
To verify, visit bt.com/smarthub.
Come and experience Lebanese dining at Marouche Restaurants. Try some of our amazing dishes, kafta dipped in a delicious hummus, or a colourful meze, complemented by a robust Lebanese red. With live music and traditional belly dancing, enjoy an atmosphere to match the food's rich and distinctive flavours. Go to Marouche.com to find out more. Marouche Restaurants, the finest Lebanese food across London.
Oh, the garden's an absolute mess. It's my turn to have the cross-stitch crew round for tea and Battenberg. I'll have to get a landscape gardener in and a wildlife expert. It's a jungle out there. We could be eaten alive by those deadly flutterbugs. Oh, relax, relax. It's Trust a Trader. Marvellous local tradespeople who've been tried, tested and reviewed. All specialists in their areas, from landscape gardening to pest control. Oh, visit trustatrader.com.
Trustatrader.com. Leading Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag #FarageOnLBC.
Well, I've said goodbye to Governor Bryant of Mississippi, and for those that missed the interview, of course it'll be on LBC's webpage. I've never heard the term before when I asked him about Trump, blue-collar billionaire. I think that one will stick and that one will last. Now, other news today. Very interesting. YouGov, big poll today, asking people nearly a year on from the referendum how they feel and what they want to happen. And 45% just want us to leave the European Union. They couldn't really care less what the deal is. They just want us to leave. What's really interesting is there are 23% who are now defined as re-leavers. I guess that's Remainers who become leavers. Not the catchiest phrase I've ever heard. But 23% of people now say, we voted Brexit, let's just get on with it. And haven't we seen over the last couple of months the number of callers who've said, I was Remain, but I now think Brexit needs to happen. But fascinatingly, only 22% now say they want the government to ignore the June election result. 22% is now the hardcore Remain vote. And I wonder whether that perhaps explains what's happening thus far in this election. Theresa May is potentially pitching her message to 68% of the population, whereas the Lib Dems, who we were told would bounce in the polls, would have a really big campaign, are actually aiming at only 1 in 5 voters, some of whom will have tribal loyalty to other political parties. And I wonder whether this fundamental change of opinion explains what is going on today. If anyone really fundamentally disagrees with me on that, then please do let me know. But I think basically, if you're a Remainer, and you're still a Remainer, you are on an iceberg that is melting very, very quickly. At least that's what I told Rachel Johnson at lunch today. She didn't seem very happy about it. But back to my theme of the evening, and that is that the Tory party, under Theresa May, have made a big pitch for working class votes. She's basically said, we are now the party for working people. Traditionally, it was always Labour that most represented the working classes in this country. And I'm asking you, which party truly represents the interests of working class people. Ross in Port Talbot, tell me, what do you think?
Hi, Nigel. Nice to be back on. How are you?
I'm very well, indeed, and you?
Good. Yeah, it's always been Labour for me, no matter how much I don't like the man, Mr. Corbyn.
Right.
I trust him with the working people, and I was saying this to the lady I speak to before. If the working class stopped going to work, the country would stop. Because without the working class, there is no hospitals. There's nothing out there. And to me, they're so important, the working class people, no matter where you're from. And to me, the Tory party have nothing on them. I know she's trying to get a vote in. Have a look what Theresa May was doing when she was canvassing a couple of days ago. And there was a woman who was living on disability living allowance.
Yes.
That completely cleaned her out because she was like, where's my disability living allowance? Where's my learning difficulties? It's not there. They're putting people on PIP.
But she says, Ross, and I'm going to quote the Prime Minister. She says the Conservative Party is the unashamed voice of ordinary working people once again. That's what she's saying.
I just can't. I can't trust that. And like I said to you previously when I was on the show, I don't like Jeremy Corbyn. I can't stand Diane Abbott. But I will. But I've made up my mind. I will vote for Labour in the next election.
Yeah. Simply
down on the fact that this NHS needs to be sorted for the likes of me, you, and anyone else in this country that can't afford private healthcare. We don't want to be in a situation like we are with our good friends across the Atlantic, like the governor of Mississippi was just on now. With the poor people can't afford the healthcare in America, there's no treatment. You know, we are very privileged to have an incredible health service in this country, no matter what state it's in. I'd rather someone lead us, which can put the working class people first, and get this NHS working again.
And do you think? I mean, do you think that Jeremy Corbyn has a strong identity with working class people?
Yes, I do.
You do, Ross. You couldn't be clearer. I thank you for your call. I'm going to ask Adam in Buckinghamshire what he thinks.
Hello, Nigel. Well,
Hello.
I think neither the Conservatives nor Labour are the party of the working class. I mean, let me just give you my quick views on both. The Conservatives, they've come out with this idea about, we're a party for the workers now. You can have 12 months off unpaid to look after a relative. I see that very much as trying to think, well, we'll be able to get away with paying for domiciliary care for people who are in severe need of it, because after all, they can get one of their relatives to do it, and that might be built into future legislation. And then if they really cared about the workers, then they would revoke the £1,200 fee it costs to go to industrial tribunal.
Yes, they did. They did bring that in, Adam, and I know that because I think the feeling was that there were too many sort of vexatious complaints being made.
Yeah, and the way to go after a vexatious complaint, or the way to prevent that, is have robust decisions, robust judicial decisions, whereby you'll be able to go after the complainant if they have made a vexatious complaint to get money back from them.
Yep.
So only people who are confident that they are genuine can go ahead.
Well, she's also, Adam, Adam, fascinatingly, Theresa May's hinting that all employee protection and worker protection that came in through European law would stay on the UK statute book. Now, that is quite a big shift, isn't it? And this is a long way from Mrs Thatcher, isn't it?
It is, but when it comes to workers' rights and everything, we had the Officers of Shops Act, Health and Safety Act, way before Europe, and many other European countries had it. So I think worker health and safety and worker protection has always been ingrained. Labour or Conservatives, always been a British thing. Now, if I could just character assassinate the Labour Party now.
Go on. You're enjoying yourself. Why not?
Yeah. We've got a situation now whereby we've got the Labour Party, be they pro-Corbynite or anti-Corbynite, they are still the intellectual elites. They don't really like the working class. We can see that in Diane Abbott, who actually kind of despises the working class. They are still...
Does she really?
Well, I really have that feeling. I think she thinks a lot of white working class people are racists if we want to control our own borders.
But only if they voted Leave.
Oh, yes, only... After all, according to many of the Islington intellectuals, because we're too stupid to understand everything else. So
we are really stupid, Adam, aren't we? We really are dumb. Yeah, go on.
So I think Labour have actually lost... I think Labour lost its way when John Smith died. John Smith was a Prime Minister in waiting. Then we had that creature, Blair, that has taken us into many different wars.
Very successful politician, won 3 general elections, massive Labour majorities.
This is the sad thing about it. When Labour go really Trotsky and when they go very left-wing, people desert them. When they come back to the centre, they were getting some sensible centrist policies under Blair, people said, yes, we trust you with the economy. Now, how could anybody trust the modern-day Labour Party with the economy when they think my children and their children are going to be saddled with debt for their lifetime long after I've died?
So, Adam, it's pretty clear that you're condemning everybody. Who do you think in this election will win the war for working-class votes?
Who do you think will win the war to actually get votes?
Yeah.
Probably the Conservatives.
Yeah.
But I think it will be on hollow promises.
And it'll be on Brexit, really, won't it?
There is a lot of people are saying, OK, we need to go forward with the main issue of the decade, which is Brexit. So let's go forward. Mind you, Jeremy Corbyn's played... But you've got Jeremy Corbyn, who was an arch-leaver all his life, who suddenly became a Remainer.
I know.
And you've had...
and you've got May the other way round, and you've got the right-wing Conservatives now sounding quite left-wing, and the whole thing's a bit confusing. Adam, I think left and right's out of the window. I've thoroughly enjoyed the call. On Facebook, Stuart says, what defines working class? Even the Queen has duties to perform. My granny does less. Lorraine says, not many career politicians give a damn about the working classes. None of them I get on Twitter. They only have their own interests at heart. It's called power, says David Hodgkin. Strange question. I wasn't aware that any political party truly represented the working class. Is this a trick question? Asks Katie. Look, the traditional definition of the working class, I think, is much wider and broader in many ways than it was before. It's almost anybody that's out there working, isn't it? But the question is, for a lot of skilled, semi-skilled and unskilled Labour, for them, traditionally, the Labour Party was their home. We saw UKIP bite very deep into what's called the C2, skilled workers group, and now what we've seen today is an all-out assault from a Conservative Prime Minister to go for that audience. Right now, you're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:45.
Coming up at 8 on LBC, Clive Bull.
After Theresa May is challenged by an angry voter in the street, but she again says no to a TV debate with Corbyn, do you think the public are getting their questions answered?
Clive Bull on LBC.
If your property investment portfolio is growing, you might find you have some questions, like whether to operate the business through a limited company. And if you do, then what about the accounting and tax issues? Or you might want to know about the legal issues under landlord and tenant or inheritance tax. So who can help you with this? Barnes Rofe. Clever accountants for property businesses. Visit barnesrofe.com/radio.
Hello to spring markets booming with laughter and jokes that leave you smiling days after. Say hello to something new today at helloyoudating.com.
So what does everybody love about Basics from Oasis Dental Care?
I love getting affordable private dental care at my local Oasis practice.
I love having the treatment I need at a fixed price.
I love booking an appointment at a time that suits me.
With Basics, we're sharing the love at Oasis practices all over the UK. Book a Basics checkup now for just £30 at oasisdentalcare.co.uk. What's not to love? Participating practices only. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
And relax. It's Trustatrader. Blimmin' lovely tradespeople who do the job right. Visit trustatrader.com.
Trustatrader.com. If you own a Swiss watch and it's time to sell it, speak to watches.co.uk. The whole process runs like clockwork. Rolex, Patek Philippe, Omega and more. It only takes a couple of ticks and we pay immediately. Or if you just fancy a change, we could take yours in part exchange. From time on your hands to money in your pocket, it couldn't be easier with watches.co.uk. The pre-owned Swiss watch specialist.
Driving has a new sound. Calm, quiet, yet exhilarating. It's driven by a new kind of energy, and it instills a new kind of feeling. But don't take our word for it. Discover the BMW i3, at the BMW i Electric Experience from the 19th to the 21st of May at your nearest BMW centre. Search BMW i3.
What if you took a holiday where your inhibitions stayed at home and everything from menus to memories was supersized? What if the city felt like every movie you'd ever seen and discovering hidden bars and delis helped you rediscover each other? A world of what if is waiting. USD breaks with British Airways, now from just £499 per person for 3 nights, including return flights and hotel. Book now at ba.com. Limited availability, date exclusions, conditions and booking fees may apply. At all protected.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
Well, for the last 5 months on my show, I've been listening to what you've got to say about the big issues of the day. And next week, I'm going to come out and try and meet you face to face to hear about the things affecting you and how you're going to vote and why, up and down the country. The Nigel Farage Roadshow will be live next week from Manchester, Birmingham, Newcastle and Glasgow. And I want to hear from you. If you've got a burning issue, then get yourself in the audience, get on air on LBC, go to lbc.co.uk to register and be part of the conversation. That's the Nigel Farage Roadshow, all next week, only on LBC. And I'm looking forward to it very much indeed. And one of the questions we'll be asking next week, I know we will, is which party in this election best represents the interests of working class people. No longer, it seems to me, can the Labour Party take it for granted that the working classes in droves are going to vote for them. And Mrs May today has not just made a big pitch for their vote, she's also taken the Conservative Party in a direction that we've never seen in modern times, particularly when she says she will keep all EU employee protection law in place in this country. These are big, seismic shifts in British politics. Will, in Birmingham, which party now best represents the working classes?
Hi, Nigel. Nice to speak to you. The Conservatives, and for me, it's been the Conservatives for a long time.
Has it?
The 10% tax rate was abolished by a Labour government, by Gordon Brown, back in 2008, I believe.
Yep.
George Osborne has accelerated the raising of the personal allowance, bringing hundreds, if not thousands or tens of thousands, I'm not sure on statistics, out of actually paying income tax.
Yeah, that was actually, Will, to be fair, wasn't that one of the things that the Lib Dems in the coalition pushed hard for?
It was, but those increases in the personal allowance have continued under the David Cameron and George Osborne government, even though
fair enough.
A short-lived government. I have every hope and faith that they're going to carry on raising. Whereas if Labour get in with Jeremy Corbyn's plans, they're going to spend more. They say they're going to tax the richest. They're going to raise tax for corporations and business, which is going to deter employers from taking on new employees. So unemployment could quite realistically rise, in my opinion, which means that more working class people are actually going to be out of work, not working at all.
But Will, aren't you missing something? Will, aren't you missing something? Immigration. What have the Tories done to reduce immigration?
Well,
nothing.
Nigel, while we've been in the European Union, and this is an argument that you've used many times, our hands were tied. We couldn't do anything about immigration while we were members of the European Union. There was nothing we could do.
But equally, Will, what they didn't do was to reduce non-EU migration. They failed at that as well.
That's a fair point. But
you see, well, I take your points about the personal allowance. And by the way, I've campaigned for that for years and years and years, and I agree with it completely. I get that point, but I genuinely believe that the issue for working class people has been mass immigration. The impact not just on their jobs, on their income, but actually on the communities in which they live as well. And yet, I'm just asking myself, is anybody really even discussing immigration in this election campaign at all?
Nigel, I think you've got a really fair point there, and I was a Leave voter. I voted Leave because of the constitutional issues as well as the issues with immigration and the bureaucracy coming from Brussels. But again, the Conservatives, they haven't met it, but they were the only party to seriously pledge out of the main parties back in 2010 that they would cut immigration to the tens of thousands. They haven't done it.
No.
Labour weren't prepared to even talk about it then, and even now, Jeremy Corbyn is very wishy-washy about immigration. He hasn't set a target that Labour would set to meet.
No, well, this is my point, Will. This is my point. He won't do that. And when Nick Ferrari on LBC interviewed the Prime Minister last week on this issue of immigration, she didn't really have an answer, did she?
No, she didn't, and I don't think they have got an answer. Personally, from where I'm sat, looking at the whole thing, I think that Mr Corbyn has already given up on general election. Their manifesto, in my opinion, is just rubbish. It's not worth the paper it's written.
Well, hang on, we haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen it yet, have we?
I've seen it.
Well, it was leaked, of course, but
it was leaked, and then pretty much they've come out and said, "Oh, the manifesto's been approved." They haven't said, "Oh, yes, we will." The manifesto.
Tomorrow, I think we're going to get the Labour manifesto, and we'll discuss it at length tomorrow evening. Will, I thank you very much for your call. I get on Twitter from David Anderson, spent 3 generations complaining politics is full of left-right. Refreshing to see some centrism globally. Well, certainly in France it looks like there's a bit of centrism. Historically, the Labour Party have represented the working classes, but things have changed. They are now more to the left compared to the traditional left-of-centre vote. And a bit of advice here. Remain voters who have changed their mind should be called later leavers. Now, I prefer that, David in Liverpool. Later leavers sounds to me better than relievers. It sounds like they might be doing something awkward. Right, Steve in Manchester. Who represents the working classes?
Hi, Nigel. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Right now, no one clearly represents the working class. You've got a choice right now between the hard left socialists under Jeremy Corbyn, and you've got Theresa May, who seems to be hoovering up everyone's good policies. Traditionally the Conservatives represent hedge fund managers, big bankers, big multinationals, big Tory donors. That's where their bread and butter is. The Socialists under Labour, represented by the unions, they get their money from the union membership.
Yeah.
They've gone extreme to the left. The Tories are sort of trying to position themselves in rhetoric only, as the centre party of the working class. When you look at what they've done to social care and austerity, cutting back, providing for those people, just about managing, as they call them, I don't think they're going to follow through on their promises.
You don't?
No.
Right. So is Mrs May... Is Mrs May over-promising in this election campaign?
She said when she was Home Secretary, she's going to cut net migration down to the tens of thousands.
Yep.
We all know what happened there. Right.
Yep.
So she's rhetoric doesn't follow through. I think with Brexit, she's rhetoric, she's not going to follow through.
So, Steve, really, your conclusion is that nobody really represents the working classes?
It should have been UKIP, but UKIP have been caught flat-footed by, unfortunately, your departure into different avenues. They've not got out the starting blocks yet, I don't think. They've had some bad results. It's right now for UKIP to step into the centre ground and say, we're the party of the working class.
Right. So Steve, you think there's a big gap for UKIP here at some point, whether it's in this election or in the future with working class voters?
It's crying out for a centrist party. It's crying out.
Yep.
You look at the Conservatives' history, they've not really ever stood for the working class in their history. You look at the Socialists under Labour, Jeremy Corbyn, they're for about the something for nothing, right? So they want to tax the big multinationals, the big earners, and give it to the people who are just about managing, right? Okay, look, she's good in theory, but you've got to look at the value of the pound, inflation, and...
OK. Steve, I'm going to have to stop you there. Time is running out. You've had a good go. Clive, you're my last caller of this evening. You've got 40 seconds to make your point. Good evening, Clive.
OK, Conservatives have never been for the working class, never have, never will.
Right.
But the things that are most important to people of this country were brought in the Labour government in 1945 and other governments since. The Conservatives under Thatcher sacking thousands of people daily. Every time you picked up the paper, there were so many thousand here, so many thousand there, and it goes on and on and on. The Conservatives do not represent the working class. They're not middle of the road. They never will be and never have. I'm old enough now, and young people have voted for the first time. Get the manifestos and read them.
Well,
get them all and read them.
Clive,
On
that note, I'm going to tell you that every day the manifestos come out, we will, on this show, concentrate on that party's manifesto for the day, starting tomorrow with the Labour Party. And thank you for your calls and texts and tweets and Facebook messages. My final thought on who truly represents the working classes in this country: no one. Because actually, if you look at the front benches, as it exists in the House of Commons today, there are hardly any working class representatives actually there. I think there is still a big gap in the market, actually. Don't forget, you can apply for tickets for my roadshow on lbc.co.uk. You've been listening to The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. I'm back tomorrow from 7. Coming up at 10, it's Ian Collins. But up next, it's Clive Bull.
Thank you very much, Nigel, and we're going to continue this conversation. It's a month now after the election was actually announced. I wonder if you're in either